Everybody, welcome to another Hot Topics here with our good friends over at Hotel Business. I'm Glenn Haussman. You know me as the host of the No Vacancy podcast and pretty much being on the road with you everywhere I go. I just got back from a 10-day business trip and hey, I even got to stay at a hotel for one of our guests today. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm really excited to talk to you about all the things that are going on in the hospitality industry as it goes for smart technology solutions for higher profitability and GS scores. First of all, I'd like to say happy rate cut day, everybody. I know that a half a point is going to be cheering everybody up, and that's going to make a huge difference, especially when it comes to your investments going forward. More hotels are going to be able to be developed. More hoteliers are going to be able to install great new technologies like the one or about today, because each and every one of these technologies is something that your guest is going to be looking for. So there's a way that you guys are going to be able to make more money in the future and all of that. So let's talk a little bit about what we're doing today. Smart hoteliers are implementing technological solutions that are reducing guest complaints by as much as 71%. This really tells me that makes tech investment an essential move for the hotel economy, which has been faced with constricting profitability potentials. You already know what I'm talking about. Your rates are up as high as you feel that you can go. You're pushing up against the ceilings. You got to find ways to lower those costs, and great solutions out there are going to help you do this. So today we're going to be sharing with you how hoteliers are streamlining operations through specific technologies that are helping hoteliers make more money and also happens to free up time to help create better on-site experiences. So today we have with us the incredible Barry Phillips, Senior Director, Commercial and Operations Systems with Lowe's Hotels and Companies, a wonderful Michael Blank, Principal at Woodmont Lodging, the ineffable Chris Richardson, VP Engineering and Sustainability with Davidson Hospitality, and the wonderful, incredible, amazing Michelle Petarsky, VP and General Manager, B2B Duracell Professional North America at Duracell Inc. Hey, everybody, how you all doing today?
They're great.
Great. It's great to see you. Now, before we get started, you folks out there watching, we want to make this as much about you as possible. So feel free to ask your questions. I will get to them as soon as I can. All right, so let's get this thing started. So great to see everybody here today. So Chris, over at Davidson Hospitality, you're VP Engineering Sustainability. And one of the things that I don't really get to talk about is these people that are focused specifically on that engineering component. I hear a lot of owners and developers. So when you're thinking about smart technology, what's top of mind for you from that point of view?
So, we start at, bottom line is utilities, anything utility-wise, electricity, water consumption, gas consumption. We start high, and then we go for the low-hanging fruit, what can be anything from, pools and to all the way to our door locks and automated hand sinks. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah, it sure does. Michael, how are you thinking about it, generally speaking?
Technology is kind of the Wild West for hotels. And so we're excited about where we can implement new technology to save money or enhance revenue. But yeah, we're constantly looking at new technologies to kind of drive the business in a new direction.
So how are you feeling about the interest rate cut today? Does that make you feel a little bit better when it comes to development and redevelopment of your properties?
Of course. I mean, as an investor, an acquirer, developer, interest rates drive a lot of the way we do deals. So it's big news for us.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about technologies, generally speaking, how are you thinking about the priorities for you when it comes to implementing new technologies? Because there's what I'm just trying to get to is there's just so much out there for the average hotelier. It's got to be hard to figure out where to begin. Chris went with the low-hanging fruit of utilities. How are you feeling about it?
It has to show return on investment quickly. And, there is so many options today. The problem is it's so fragmented. And so we have to kind of figure out what works with the systems we have in place, how quickly can it be integrated, how quickly it can be implemented, and, how easy it is for the staff to use. So, we're factoring all these pieces in addition to how much it costs to see how well it drives, returns to the bottom line.
Yeah, excellent. Barry, over at Lowe's, you're continuing to redevelop properties. I said before, before we went on air, I stayed at your Lowe's Ventana Canyon property. Stayed in a brand new room. I may have been one of the first few people to stay over there. There's actually still tapes on the walls in the corridor and stuff like that. And literally, and I say this with love because for me, I'm such a geek with this stuff. I like my elevator door opened and there was a guy painting the elevator wall. I felt like it was from an episode of Three's Company where I almost walked into that. So that refreshed. So when you're thinking about technology, what does short or ROI mean to you, like Michael was just explaining?
Yeah, really, when we look at the smart technology or bringing in new technology or even replacing it, I think Michael hits it on the head when it comes to it's a fragmented environment today.
Yeah.
I honestly think that integration is key to most things out there. One of the things that I've seen in the past couple of years is vendors not necessarily playing nice with each other.
Yeah.
And that's where integration comes into play. If we want a product, that's the product we should go with. And if we wanted to integrate to your product, even though you might have a competitor, we still like this one and we should play nice together and really integrate.
Very easily said, much more complicated to enact.
Yeah, hands down.
Yeah.
Completely. But yeah, so I mean, when we're looking at that technology, it's both from the guest experience and the team member experience as well. So how do we create that connected experience for both the guest and our own team? And it's really hard.
Yeah. All right. So integrations, where are we with integrations today? It's shocking to me because I remember I started at Hotel Business Magazine back in 1996. And one of the first things that I remembered was this company coming out with a product called the Missing Link. And it was going to solve all the integration issues. And it was like a whole box and all of that kind of stuff. I'm now over 50 and have gray hair, and we're still dealing with this particular issue, Barry. How difficult is it? And, how reasonable is your request to get these integrations done? Because I'm here, someone told me at the event I was at last week that they actually lost a deal because an integration couldn't get done. And that drives him as a vendor crazy, and it must drive you crazy. This wasn't your deal, but it must drive someone like you crazy if you can't get it done.
Yeah, integrations have come a long way. I'll say that to start. They're not like they used to be, right? I mean, with open APIs and the way that we can integrate pretty quickly today has definitely developed. But it's still a long ways off, at least with vendors playing well with each other or wanting to at our request. I'd be lying if I would say that we've evaluated other vendors because they wouldn't integrate to each other. I honestly think that if we want a product, we should be able to integrate that to another product, just because of what we've seen in the environment with vendors eating up small niche vendors.
Yeah.
And just getting a piece of the pie.
Mm-hmm.
So texting per se, if I wanted to use this texting platform because I think it is the best platform, I should be able to integrate that to somebody who might have a texting platform, but I really love them for something else.
So let me just let me just explain a little bit deeper what Barry is talking about over there. Right now, there are a lot of companies that are going with a very distinct strategy of becoming an umbrella company and offering a lot of different technologies under that umbrella in the hopes that they can make a sale for their entire line of products. Of course, hoteliers have different needs, different desires, different relationships, and may still want to have different products that are not sold under that particular umbrella. And hoteliers must have those programs all work with each other. So you can see where there's some opposing forces out there. It's nothing new. The hospitality industry always has opposing forces, the classic being the owners versus the franchise, the franchisees versus the brands, right? For example. But Chris, Michelle, I promise I'm going to get to you in just 1 second. I swear, Z's. But Chris, how are you thinking about these integrations, and what are your expectations? And doesn't it cost them money to integrate? And how reasonable should you be?
So this is a great topic, especially with Michelle and her team.
It's a topic we didn't expect, which is what I love.
So
Yeah.
when I first met Michelle's team, InSite Procell, back
Thank you for bringing it to Michelle. That'll make my sense.
the end of
Yeah.
the end of 2023, her counterpartner Josh approached me and said, "Hey, we got this InSite program. Check it out. You know, we wanted to learn the back end of it. There's another platform my team has to log into. Is there something else they need to watch? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I didn't want it. I
Right.
was totally opposed to it. I
Right.
said, how do we integrate you with Amadeus? How do we integrate you with Hot Sauce, Core, Alice, those
Mhm.
things?" And Josh, we're working on it. We're trying to get with someone with Amadeus. You know what? Let me help you help. Let me help you help me.
Yeah.
I integrated the two teams. I was like, we need them to talk to Hot Sauce. That way it goes straight to them, pushes out a work order to our team members, and they could jump right on it. So they're not having to log in something. What happens 3 months later? We bridge that gap together. What did I do within 30 days? I was the first hotel management company to sign up with InSite and Procell to get the ball rolling, because I was not adding another layer of issues for my team to log into, but instead we integrated together so we could drive the forces together and be ahead of our guest complaints.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Michelle, so I guess you figure you got this interfacing thing worked out.
Excellent. Yeah, no, thank you, Chris, for the
And while you're at it, tell us a little bit about InSite as well, so we could have an understanding of the conversation.
Thank you. You heard Chris mention that. Yes, Procell InSite is it's an integrated device management platform. So we at Procell, we are the professional brand of Duracell. So we started with the batteries, and we started by creating the best, longest lasting professional battery. But we really saw an opportunity to partner with those in hospitality, especially to develop a system that could go beyond that. Mm-hmm. And what Procell InSite does is it helps monitor all of the devices in a hotel. And it really helps determine when batteries need to be replaced. And so operations can proactively determine when to replace the battery. It takes the guesswork out. It also helps them understand when to replace things like consumables, like paper towels and soap out of the soap dispensers. And as Chris mentioned, it integrates into every platform. So we started as a standalone, and we did evolve into a system that is very seamless, very flexible. And the idea is that we are device agnostic, and that we look across all battery, powered devices, and we can really create an integrated, seamless experience.
I love that, Michelle. True confession time. I'm really glad about that, because every fifth hotel I go into that has bathroom dispensers, they're empty, even though I'm told that they're never going to be empty because they've got it figured out. And that makes me very sad and not clean, Glenn, for example. So Michael, back to you, sir. We've talked about integrating technologies and all of that. And we talked about the idea of low-hanging fruit for technologies. But what are some of the most effective technology solutions that you've implemented or plan to implement that you think really help to focus on lowering those guest complaints that are out there? Not saying you get a lot of them. I'm just saying the nature of the hotel business is people complain.
Yeah. I think that, Chris kind of touched on some of the things that we're doing just with the technologies that they're using and Michelle's technology, right? There's a variety of things that help the hotel, but ultimately help the guest, right? Mm-hmm. So if you think from a maintenance standpoint, just having systems in place that communicate front desk to engineering to housekeeping and so forth, so that when the guest comes to a room, the thing that is an issue is already dealt with, right? Guests don't complain when they're there. They complain after they leave. And the goal is...
Or not at all, and just don't come back, which is even worse.
And so we're really trying to focus on those things that are kind of touch points and front facing that address issues before the guests even get to the room. So the kind of the maintenance platforms that really communicate across all boards. I love the texting platforms, because I think that, in today's age, no one calls, everybody texts.
Yep.
It really provides a way to communicate with a guest quickly. But even simple things, the way that, we have, smart thermostats. So, can the room be a certain temperature when they're not there, but set it to a temperature when they show up, so they don't show up and the room's not 42 degrees and it's not 85, right? It's at a right temperature that takes some noise out of a guest stay before they even get comfortable. But we have to pick our spots, and, technology is expensive, and so we have to make sure that what we invest in really is impactful day one.
Yeah, and I love what Procell is doing by eliminating, like you just said, those points of issue before they even happen. If you could eliminate them ahead of time, not only are you going to be making the customer happy, but you are going to be saving on labor costs and will help to engage your staff better in the job because they're not getting yelled at or complained at, for example. Barry, how are you thinking about technologies that are both a win-win for the person staying in the hotel and for you as operators of the property?
Yeah, I think this runs right on the line of integration. But if I come back to what we try to focus on is reactive versus proactive, which is very much what Michelle's team does.
Yep.
At least with these integrations, saying, okay, instead of the guest experiencing the issue, we're going to resolve that before they can even get to it. And that's really tilting the wheel to say we're going to be proactive. It's an entire PM program. It's how we react to problems. I think I mean, talking about smart thermostats, same thing. How do we gauge those items going wrong, whether it's our door locks, our thermostats, our batteries, and then how do we react to those before the guest can even get to experience that? But I think the challenge that I run into is, where do we put our money? Our money should really go to the one that has the biggest impact to the bottom line. But in some cases, that bottom line might not be tangible. It could be a guest experience, your GSI. It could also be the team member experience, what your team members are saying in surveys, et cetera. So you have to balance whether it's financial or experiential, where that money goes.
Yeah, and if you're lucky, it'll overlap and be a win-win. Michelle, how are you seeing this particular issue? And I've got a question from our audience, and I'd like to just remind all of you out there to make sure that you ask us our questions because we want to make sure that you walk away with great implementable ideas. Michelle?
Great. Well, we think about this in a few different ways. When you think about the Procell InSite, what we were trying to do with this, we really wanted to try to enhance or give the hoteliers and operations folks an opportunity to streamline operations, but also enhance the guest experience. So the way we streamline operations, again, is that predictive technology that allows them to know when they should change the battery, and it eliminates some of the guesswork. So without that predictive technology, without that opportunity to understand when to change the batteries, sometimes they're changing on a schedule. In many cases, throwing away batteries that have up to 70% of the life left in them. So it's not great for the bottom line, and it's also they're spending more on labor than they need to. Versus with Procell InSite, they can understand when the batteries need to be changed. And then also, from a guest experience standpoint, by not waiting until the battery dies and they have a situation where, for instance, they're trying to get into their hotel room, the door, the battery in the door lock is dead. It could take 45 minutes plus, and it's very disruptive to the operations team to come and have to address that. If that guest has a bad experience, we know 43% of guests are likely to post about it, and that could cost a hotel up to 30 lost bookings. So they're mad. You want to avoid that from happening, but with InSite, what we try to do is give them an efficient way to do that. So it both elevates that guest experience, but also helps enhance their productivity.
Right, because I guess, Chris, like back in the day, I mean, obviously weren't as many batteries back in the day, but if a battery failed, there'd be no way to know about it, I guess, until someone complained, right?
That is correct. Sorry, I was on mute. That is correct. And back when I first started the hotel industry, that was it. When you get a couple of complaints from guests, the GM would freak out. Hey, change out all the batteries. Like, right. We go through, and that was the old age. These days, now with InSite's technology, we can see the percentage of what's left. We can be proactive instead of reactive. When we have a large group come in for our convention center, we can go through and see the entire platform, where our batteries at. So we're not having 500 people run in for that 20-minute break to use the bathroom, and you're trying to wash your hands and you got to go to the next one and wait in line. Yeah. So we can be proactive to that. And same with the door locks. I mean, it's great technology, and it keeps us ahead of that curve.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, I want to thank all of you out in the audience. I'm getting all these great questions. I'm not going to go in the order they came in because I got one that's specifically on this topic. Michelle, how are you able, and this comes from Anonymous, who's writing a lot of questions today. How are you able to estimate when batteries need to be changed?
Great question. So what we are able to do, we have a sensor that's a very simple retrofit, and it is, again, very, very cost effective, and we're able to simply attach that and connect that in the battery operated devices. This senses, it's a combination of sensing things like voltage and vibration, and doing also predictive analytics, and it collects data, and then it's able to send that information back, and it seamlessly populates a dashboard that again can be standalone or integrated into a system. And the great thing is you can look at what's happening in every door lock or every battery operated device in a single hotel, or you can look at, if you want to look across 50 hotels, you can look at a more macro view of that.
Wow. That's pretty amazing right there. Hey, a little pro tip for everybody out there. One area that probably won't use InSite technology is the AV guys and their lav mics. So if you ever need AA batteries, go over to the AV guys, because they're so superstitious, they're going to throw them away after like 10% use. And because we want to highlight sustainability, I think that would be a good idea. Or maybe put them in door locks or something like that, so Michelle's system can tell you exactly how much they are. All right, moving on to another question. The big buzzword lately is AI. How are you using AI with your operations and dealing with guests? I know that's kind of a very vague question in this sense, and my overall opinion, guys, is that AI is going to be incorporated in some way, in meaningful ways, probably in every single aspect of what we're able to do here in hospitality. And since we're still at the nascent stages of it, I don't know whether or not it's having a huge impact, but I think the potential is there. Michael, how do you see it today? And is it really affecting your business at all yet? And then what do you hope from this technology?
It is a buzzword that has yet to really infiltrate the hotel space the way it's infiltrated basically every aspect of our lives.
Right, Michael, you know that when people stop talking about it constantly, that's when it's having a real effect on the way we do business, right?
Yeah, I mean, it has so much potential, and when you think about how little we know about our guests, what they do in our hotel, their habits, and you think about how much Target or Amazon or Walmart or one of those knows about our habits, or Google. It's unbelievable, the difference, and it also highlights the potential, what it could be, to enhance the guest experience, to enhance.
Listen, just because I've said the word battery several times out loud, I look forward to every ad for the next 6 months being for Duracell. So
exactly.
I'll be doing my part and doing some purchases.
Yeah. But it's it feels right now a distant future.
Right.
To see how it gets integrated into every aspect of a hotel. I would love to see it more proactive from a revenue management, from a guest interaction, guest interface, but I have yet to see the technology that is accessible today that would really help in a lot of those categories.
Right. And we're just simply not there yet, although versions of AI, machine learning, have been very successful in the hotel business, particularly when it comes to the revenue category and managing that. Barry, how are you thinking about AI generally speaking right now? And when do you think we're going to actually get there where it's going to start to make demonstrable differences to your job?
Yeah, I think Michael's right in this area that we're talking about it a lot, but we're not seeing significant change.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure the hospitality industry knows how to utilize AI to be effective. When you look at the different segments in hospitality, AI can be used in a variety of ways, but when you come to the luxury segment, AI needs to be utilized not necessarily to drive the entire guest experience, but support the team member or the guest experience if the guest decides to use that.
Right.
It's all about giving options. We can be intelligent from how we respond to a guest, but at the end of the day, there still needs to be that human element. And I think that balance is what we struggle with. How much AI is too much AI? I myself don't like to deal with a bot or not a human, even though I work in tech. But it's how do we deliver enough information to be powerful to the guest and serve them the way they want to be served?
Yeah.
And finding that balance is where I think AI needs to step in. And some are doing it, but not to the level of other industries for sure.
Yeah, I can't stand the AI bots, and I had a little tech problem through my bank, and I'm trying to get help on there. And the phone tree is horrific. And all I'm doing is I'm like, operator. And before you know it, I'm like screaming and crying. I'm like, operator, just get me a human, just to solve my problem. And that never happened. And by the way, I still haven't figured out my issue, but that's a story for another day. Chris, they're making great points. And one of the things that frustrates me is, as a customer, is I don't feel like the brands really understand me, make me offers that make me happy and all of that kind of stuff. But when you're on the property, when in your role as engineering and sustainability, what are some of the things on site that would make me happy on site?
Well, one of our connected technologies for sustainability is Viva Aquatics. They're a pool monitoring company. They do the whole chemicals and everything. They're pre-active. I mean, they're proactive.
Mm-hmm.
We can see temperatures on hot tubs. So in the morning, we'll get an alert if it's too far down, if the temperature's not to where it's supposed to be. So when that guest interaction goes out there, that hot tub's to their satisfaction, or their pool's chilled to where it's supposed to be. Anywhere from that to the chlorine levels. I mean, we can see proactively what our chlorine level is, if we put too much chlorine in, if we didn't. And it's on the sustainability part, we're not overdosing chemicals into a body of water.
Listen, it's a much better and more appropriate than the old way of doing it, of just sniffing your guests to see how much they reek the chlorine. So
correct. And the same on a loss management side. I mean, we get readings every 5 seconds. So when we have that claim come back, we can pull up data off of a platform and say, here we go, and hand it over. So it's more being reactive and ensuring our guests' safety and satisfaction.
Yeah. Michelle, I got a question coming up on ROI, but before I ask that question, how are you thinking about ROI for the people that want to get involved with Procell?
Sure. So ROI is really, one of the key drivers of Procell InSite. So it starts with, again, being able to reduce the number of batteries that they're using. So in some cases, they're able to cut in half the number of times they change out the battery in a full year. So that's pretty significant. And the other element of that is the the less money on batteries and on consumables, because again, we do help to monitor things like paper towels and soap, but also just the less labor. So again, if you're not changing on a schedule, if you're changing as needed, then you're getting really tight with allocating the labor and optimizing your processes in a way that really takes full advantage of your staff, so they can spend more time focusing on things that are more guest facing. But we've done some initial studies, and we found that that combination of decreasing the amount of materials that you have to buy, batteries and others, and also reduction in labor, can equate to, and then some of the other tangible benefits that come from increasing guest satisfaction and reducing the risk of that bad review, that can equate to a 7+ X ROI. So we're finding this to be very compelling for our hotel partners, especially.
It seems like a real no-brainer to me to do something like that. Anything that's easily implementable that immediately starts saving you money, especially to the tune of 50%, is something that is worth thinking about. Barry, here comes a question from Aaliyah Riley. What ROIs are you looking at to see how your bottom line will be impacted? And like, if a vendor has an ROI calculator, maybe would you consider them first? What's your thought process on that?
Yeah, my biggest challenge with this is the ROI calculator from the vendor.
Yeah, right.
It really depends the vendor and also the execution of the product to make the ROI work. I've seen some from several that the ROI calculator is not.
Scenarios, maybe, to be polite.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But really, the ROI at least gives us the potential to have the buying power to actually move forward with the product. We can punch in a couple numbers and get what we need to say, yes, there is an investment here. If we do use it the way the vendor wants us to use it, there's going to be an ROI. Lighter products tend to be easier to have an ROI than something more intricate like a work order system that's going to have a sort of a level that's going to put us into a box.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Michael, how are you seeing that particular issue? And how do you really overall, other than the low-hanging fruit, think about which of those technologies specifically might appeal more to you?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for hotel owners, right, is how do you quantify the cost
Right.
to determine the gain, right? So a lot of the ROI investments that we make initially, kind of to what Chris said in the beginning, was really the utility side. It's easy to quantify water, right? It's easy to quantify electricity. And so investments in those kind of line items are a no-brainer, and you can measure it before, you can measure it after. Soft things like, does it improve guest scores, and that translates to more revenue, that becomes, a harder pill to swallow in terms of depending on the size of the investment. So most of our ROI math today is really looking at things they're easily measurable from a cost standpoint, and we can kind of see the before and the after. It's very tangible.
Yeah, Michelle, it seems like that's exactly what you're doing, delivering real numbers instead of like vagary. I love that. But I also sympathize for those companies out there that have those products that it's true, but you can't prove it as fact, right? So I definitely have that sympathy for you. Chris, I know you're also talking about the low-hanging fruit, but is there any particular formula you're thinking of an ROI that makes you go, got to do it now, as opposed to got to do it next year, or I'm going to be thinking about that at some point in the future?
Well, it depends. I mean, obviously, every month I'm looking at rebates. What rebates are coming out from government entities? As those rebates come out, and I work with a partner, Commercial Green Solutions, who
just spoke with Rick Rest this
yeah,
morning.
Rick's on speed dial. He calls me every month. He's like, Chris, I have X, Y, and Z, and one particular area, Spokane, Washington. We have 5 beautiful properties down there that we acquired last year, and they had some huge rebates coming through there. If we can get a 12 to 18-month ROI on that, it's a no-brainer. We implement it right away. We want to see the ROI factor. Obviously, between Rick and his team, they put the ROI calculator to use. We can gain those rebates even if we have to put a little capital funds in there. We can see the operational operating savings on that almost immediately. So it's definitely no-brainers when it comes to the rebates and the short time payback period.
Yeah, I think the name ROI factor would make a great band name for a group of hoteliers. So
let's do it.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so I got another question from the audience, and guys, please keep them coming. I love this question because it really gets to the heart of a lot of the issues I think we're thinking that prevents us from pulling the trigger. Do you have an example of a piece of technology that didn't quite do what you thought it would, either because of employee training hurdles or guests never took to it? I see this frequently as a customer. For example, I was one hotel like 15 years ago that put in big desktop computers in all of their rooms. They thought that would be the future. And what wound up happening is it made it impossible for guests to use their laptop at the desk because the monitors were bolted down in there, and they wound up having to take them out. That's a big expensive one. But if any of you, I don't want to call anyone out specifically, had that same sort of thing where you would like to share, you don't have to name any brand names or anything like that. Michael?
I beta tested a kind of an AI revenue management platform for one of our hotels, and it really to take the decision making of price setting away from the management company and put it in the hands of kind of artificial intelligence. And 2 things came out of it. One was it's really hard to AI rates when you take 1,000 variables. 2, it is really hard to change the mindset of operators who've been doing revenue management for their entire lives or careers and generations. And what we found was, even if the numbers may have reflected that the system was working, it created a lot of discomfort at the property level and created some friction between this tech platform and seasoned operators,
Right.
because they just did not, they didn't agree with some of the decisions that were being made, and some of them were wrong, and that's part of AI, right? It's a trial and error. So, to all of a sudden have a room's rate set at $1,500 when the market's at $100, right? Because the system is triangulating value, creates a lot of friction. We ultimately discontinued the plan because it just didn't yield enough benefit. It was great to do it. I'm always looking for new things, but it was an interesting exercise to see the limits in which technology can work sometimes when it's not fully flushed out, and the human element that goes alongside it.
Yeah, I love that. And the magic word, friction, right? Barry, how are you thinking about technology in the vein of removing friction, either from the customer or from the great associates that are going to be utilizing those technologies?
Yeah, I think it's giving options, whether that's human AI or different platforms. Um, I, I do want to sort of talk about what we were just talking about, is technology that disappears for a moment,
Yep.
or that didn't go very well. The way that I look at this is more from a technology that didn't keep up where the industry or boarding pass stations, for example.
Right.
We don't necessarily print boarding passes anymore.
When I see one, I'm like, huh?
We still have them, yes. But your consumption there is nowhere where it used to be, but we haven't gotten to the point with the vendors to be able to support where boarding passes are today. But when we look at door locks, those have advanced to being app-based keys or Apple keys, or the technology that's hitting every other industry. So I think that's something that we're looking at is the vendor moving fast? And are they moving as fast as the industry or our guests expect them to with their technology?
Right.
Yeah.
Michelle, it seems to me that Procell is all about removing friction from the process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking to folks in different industries, especially the hospitality space, and that's really what kept coming up as a pain point, was this lack of operational efficiency because you don't know when the battery's going to die, and also the need to keep that customer happy and what they were doing at all costs because of the guesswork that was involved. So the idea of being able to have this simple system that can connect in and seamlessly integrate with operating systems, it was really compelling. And it was really compelling as we started to get out and penetrate and talk to the hospitality space especially. So it's all about that customer and that consumer, and again, trying to elevate the guest experience and leveraging the technology and the evolution of that to really provide a seamless way to do that.
Yeah, fantastic. Chris, a little bit of a different topic, but kind of in the vein. So how do you think about the trade-offs between upfront cost of tech and long-term savings? And is it different with branded hotels or boutique hotels that you guys operate?
Yeah, so it's different between branded, boutique, and ownership. I mean,
Yeah.
some of our ownership have a 2-year hold, some of them have longer.
Right. And let me just explain that to people. When people buy hotels, they're not typically going to be owning it for the rest of their lives. It's an investment play. And if you're going to come in and redevelop the property and bring it up, you're going to want to cash out those profits, recycle that capital. So there's a lot of transactions that happen after 2 or 5 years. Sorry, Chris, please continue.
No, you're good. You're good. So, on that token, we have a lot of things to put in perspective, from brands to ownership groups whenever we look at something of that nature. So we have to put all those factors in place, depending on where it is, and decipher what it's going to grow. If it's going to grow that ROI pretty quickly, again, that's the bottom key.
Right. For example, if I'm selling my property in 2-3 years, I'm really going to want products that have a high ROI. But if I'm holding it for 10 or 15 years, or maybe what Lowe's does is just, own them for, hopefully in perpetuity, then you have a different type of strategy. So please continue again. Sorry.
Correct. And those 2-year holds are the difficult part to implementing something sustainable, because most of those sustainability ROIs, they don't happen within that first 2 years unless you attach a rebate or something of that nature.
Yeah, right. Great. Barry, back to you real quick, since I was just at the Lowe's and you're in the middle of that massive renovation. How are you thinking about the same question, when it comes to the trade-offs between those upfront costs and the long-term savings? And is it different when you're doing a property-wide renovation than if you're just doing a tech upgrade?
Yeah, I think it's all about the timing. When you decide to rip out some technology and put some new technology in, or if it's paired with that renovation, let's say.
Yeah.
I think the renovations that we see today are more to ensure that the asset is still producing, and it's keeping up to par with the market. Technology doesn't necessarily follow that suit. when it comes to a renovation necessarily, like a room renovation, which is currently going on in some properties. And then there's also properties that are having a full-on renovation, which includes the technology, the infrastructure that's supporting your Wi-Fi, which pretty much supports everything on property. So I think it really depends on the property and the investment and whether you own it or you don't. There is a beauty to owning things, much different than just putting a flag on it.
Yeah.
So there's some flex there, what we can do and we can't do. We have more flex, it tends to be at Lowe's.
Yeah, I got to work on my flex a little bit. Michael, question for you. So how do you know when technology needs to be replaced, and how long until you can actually upgrade it or take it to that level that you need it to get?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, we tend to be holders for a shorter period of time. So, we implement technology that we deem necessary. And I think just taking a step back, kind of what Barry was talking about and stuff is, you have to look at, there's three characters in the hotel business, right? There's the owner, there's the operator, and there's the brand. Now they could be all the same or they could be all different.
Right.
And you could be beholden to the brand and what technology has to be there. You could be beholden to the brand and what technology is not permitted. And the operator could be beholden to the owner who says, I'm not going to write you a check to do this investment, even if it is a good investment. So look, we sometimes play the bad guy because we say no more than we say yes. And sometimes the brands are the bad guy because they make us invest money that maybe we don't want to at the time, or we feel it's not necessary. But, it's a dance, and we ultimately are trying to figure out how do we get the highest return for ourselves and for our investors, while, trying to create a high level of guest satisfaction.
Michelle, I love your head nodding there. Anything you want to add?
Well, I think that what we really strive to do is we were thinking through what we could bring to the table with this technology is trying to understand how do we make sure that each individual hotel owner actually sees the benefit of it and can kind of see where they are in their decision tree and what they're looking at from the landscape of their operating expenses and their thinking through where they want to invest. But we can add value, and it's something that they're going to be happy that they did it, and that they engaged with Procell InSite. But we want that to be something that they're excited about and that they can see the value again very quickly.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you're doing. And next, in a minute or two, I want to talk about that sustainability aspect of it. We got a couple of great more questions in here. Tim Bales is asking, how do you work through all the new technology out there to review it as possible technology to implement? And, what about your spending and all of your time reviewing? So I guess the question is, how do you actually work through the new technology to make sure what that process is like in order to, make that buy decision? So any of you guys want to jump in there with that?
Glenn, on that part, I will.
Sure.
I lost the question went away.
No, how are you making the decision on to take a technology? Are you testing it? Are you?
Yeah, so
approach?
similar to what we did with the InSite technology. It's great when I get presented to at a conference, but I still go by the trust. I still go by the trust but verify method. I trust
right. Hey, good Reagan quote, by the way.
I'm going to verify it. So we'll do a beta test at a property. I'll find one of my largest properties that one of my regional engineers sits on, and I'll implement it in his property and let him trust but verify it. He comes back with a green light. Then we'll do one final test to ensure it's going to work. And not only in the high class resorts that we have, but some of the urban area hotels, and just see how it vets out.
Barry, same for you.
Yeah, I think it's a little different on our side just because the landscape's so vast at this point with technology and startups, et cetera. We're always happy to listen to anybody talk about their product. Doesn't mean we're necessarily going to make a move today. I think what's valuable in looking at other products is understanding what's out there. If there is a superior product that can do what we're doing at the same price point or a better experience for a team member or a guest, but then you also have That's a really cool feature that our current solution should be doing. I mean, it's essentially poaching from another vendor's product to go to our vendor and say, why aren't you doing that?
Right.
But that's healthy competition as well. So I think when we
Hey,
look at the
that's a
landscape,
reason why every hotel company has 8,000 brands at this point, right?
yeah, more or less, right? But yeah, I think that's what it's looking at is there's always something out there. There's always something new and flashy to look at. But it's always that one little nugget that comes out that's like, oh, that's really cool, which is Procell. I honestly seeing them, I think last year, I walked away with a battery saying, well, that's fascinating, which wasn't something like you think about a battery, right? At the end of the day, you're like, well, it's a battery, it's a Duracell. What are you going to do with it? Well, there's so
Right.
many things
It's
that
already
consumer-
long lasting. It says right
Yeah.
there on the
Yeah.
package.
They're just letting you make sure you get the full use of it at the end of
Right,
the day.
which
The
is
maximum.
absolutely fantastic. I remember in the 90s, I think they had them, the battery tester that came on the pack, and you'd
Yeah.
put both the size and the little light, the little green thing would go. This is, of course, a lot more sophisticated for sure. But you know, the good folks at Duracell with their Procell line have a lot of brand equity that they're bringing to the table. It's a household name that everybody knows. So as a consumer, I'm going to be like, oh, I'm all aboard. I already trust it. I have a relationship with the company I built over a lifetime. Michael, so how do you think about implementing new technologies from companies that may be new on the scene versus some of the long-lasting players? Because I know I'd be afraid to invest in something new, but you also want to give new people a shot in order to beat the competition.
Yeah. So I love the toys, and so
Yep.
he has to restrain myself about the newest, shiniest. You know, I lean on our management companies to provide me the feedback loop I need to say, hey, have you used this? Have you seen this? Have you anything similar? And then separately, you know, sometimes I just, you know, get my new shiny toy, and you know, we have hotels that I now can use as beta tests. So, you know, there was a digital art company that I've been fascinated with, and when we renovated our hotel and redid the TVs, I brought them in to beta test their product in our hotels, in the one hotel we did a renovation. You know, so it's a kind of give or take. I generally defer to the management companies, but every now and then I, you know, want to try out something. You know, what Chris would mention, we take one hotel and we test it out.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. More great questions from the audience. So next one is, how do you balance between the tech savvy younger travelers and older folks who don't like technology? And I'll say everybody likes technology. It's just sometimes newer technology being pushed in our faces may create some sort of friction. So how you all thinking about balancing that? Anyone want to jump on that one in particular? Barry?
Yeah, it's giving options, right? So if you have a mobile app or a human doing the check-in, right, give you that availability to walk up and check in, get the full experience of a human interaction from check-in to check-out, or then delivering an email that simply allows them to check out or check in without a human. Those are the possibilities of what you could go from one extent to the other. I think the challenge that we run into is in some segments, we are forcing technology on the consumer,
Right.
and that's not going to work for that age gap or that user experience. I know my mother hates technology. I think I'm support for technology. But half the time when you come back down to the younger generation, not everybody is fully adapted to technology either. They
Right.
do want that level of service still, which tends to be a human service.
Yeah, and I would really caution everybody to try to keep the humanity in hospitality. And that's my theme for this year. Think about the technologies that help customer service, help create a better experience, but don't put people in a situation where they think they have to figure stuff out, particularly if they're on a vacation or on a business trip. I don't have time or interest to try to figure out all of this new stuff in order to make your hotel more profitable. So you always have to have that kind of balance. Barry, that answer is perfect to me. Giving people options, you know, letting them have the experience that they want to have. Now, one of the experiences that most people want to have these days, and it's essential if you have meeting space, is that whole idea of sustainability. Chris, the first thing out of the gate, you said, again, focusing on those utilities that make the biggest impact that's out there. So how are you thinking about the sustainability factor when it, boils down your technology choices into the buy or not buy of something?
Yeah, so one of our other partners, and it's not affiliated with InSite Procell, but it's InSite Intelligence. These guys, instead of reading your bill data every month and letting you know, what you spent last month compared to this month, it's real time. They pull the data from your water meters, electric meters, and gas meters every 5 minutes. So if you have a spike in your water, you see it right away. A work order automatically gets pushed out.
Right.
Let you know, hey, in this section you have a spike in water. But it also connects to your building management system. So what does that entail? It connects with Salesforce. So your Salesforce, you have something in the ballroom on a Saturday at noon. The AC pops down at 10 a.m. So it preps for that guest arrival. But it's over at 9 p.m. It's done. The AC goes back to unoccupied at 10 p.m. Instead of having occupancy sensors, it's automatically scheduled with Salesforce, and that right there helps you with your meeting spaces, which we have huge meeting spaces throughout Davidson's portfolio, and it helps on your utility expenses.
Much better because you're eliminating again the guest complaint thing where they walk in the room and then the sensors have to turn it on, and if it's a big space, that ain't going to be in 2 minutes, right? Like my guest room is. So I love that. Then you're also eliminating the need for somebody to type in that information separately. Anything that's automated makes for a better experience overall. Michelle, how are you helping with sustainability and helping hoteliers meet their sustainability targets and delight meeting planners at the same time?
So sustainability is really at the heart of what we're doing, and it's a core priority for Procell. So we know it's something that's increasingly important to our hotel partners as well, and to guests and potential guests and consumers that are looking for and sometimes making their choices on where to stay based on how eco-friendly the hotel is. So what we were able to do is create something that we contribute to this in 2 ways. The first way is that, as you have kindly mentioned, Barry, if you could kindly mention, we really have an excellent battery. So we first developed the best battery for professional devices designed specifically for professional devices, and that's under the Procell brand. So using the best battery helps you, again, it lasts longer, so you reduce the number of batteries that you go through and that you have in the landfill. And then, of course, providing this predictive technology, so you use the battery right up until the very end of its life, but before it dies prematurely on you. So it really maximizes the amount of energy that you can expend, and it helps you really optimize what the battery can do, and that's just less batteries in the landfill. So that helps reduce the carbon footprint. It helps increase the reputation of the hotels that we're partnering with, and helps them meet their sustainability goals.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so this is going to be a little bit shocking, but we are almost out of time. So I do want to go around and get everybody's final thoughts on this, but we got a great question from the audience that I'd love for you to answer first before each of your final thoughts. What piece of technology do you think caused the biggest jump in the hotel industry? My guess would be something like holodecks and reservation systems. And I'm not talking about indoor plumbing or electricity. But Chris, let's start with you.
I would say the text to guest scenario. I mean,
yeah,
we get that real time. You eliminate the press and zero, going through the call tree factor. You could type in your complaint, your guest request, etc., and it gets answered just immediately. Most of the platforms almost immediately it gets rolled out.
Awesome. And your final thought?
Come back.
All right, Michael, how about you?
I guess quick answer. I say the cell phone in general. Every aspect of a hotel operation now revolves around the cell phone. It changes, game changer. I think what's important to remember, people would think about technology in hotels, is this is an incredibly fragmented ownership business. That technology implementation will take a long time, just because the business is fragmented in such a way that most owners only own one hotel, right? And for them to have the bandwidth to implement a lot of new technology will take a long time to happen. So, I think guests will experience a very wide band of different technology implementations over a number of years.
Yeah, one technology implementation I'd like to see is for all of you payment processing folks out there. Can you all get together and make the units the same so I know how to operate them and I don't look like a dummy every time I'm going somewhere? You know, trying to hit my card to the right space on the thing. It makes me look foolish. All right, so Barry, what do you think is the best technology, generally speaking, that you've seen? And then some final thoughts from you, sir.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Chris's answer, which is text to guest. I mean, it's
Really?
frictionless. It's easy. It's connecting to your most personal piece of technology as a consumer. It's your cell phone. It's opened many doors and it's developing. I honestly think that's probably the biggest thing in the past 3 to 5, 8 years that's come out. And it's very lightweight, right?
Mhm.
But I will say in the past like 3 to 4 years, the food and beverage landscape has dramatically changed. There's so many different vendors in that space. It's a space that hasn't changed over a lot of time, but with the pandemic, I think it really got a boot. And it's evolving fast to recover, essentially.
Awesome. Chris, have you formulated a final thought?
Yeah, no, I would just say, technology is ever changing. I mean, you have all these new technologies coming out for sustainability stuff, constantly left and right. And I think it's, it goes across with the trust and verify method, but also ensure, our ownership groups and our brands, they're always looking at front of the house. Back of the house is very important when it comes to your bottom line. A lot of times during renovations and remodels, that those areas are overlooked. So you get a nice new product, but you're still pushing the same P&L on R&M and utilities, et cetera. So I think, going forward, I think that's going to be a huge focus, especially with sustainability measures coming out from the government entities.
All right. So with the movie Saturday Night's coming out, first season of Saturday Night Live, they were the not ready of primetime players. Chris, when do you feel technology is ready for primetime?
I mean, again, after it's trusted and, verified, ensuring that it was vetted out by, multiple people, not just, a Davidson platform. I mean, we want to make sure Hilton and the Marriotts are on board and they've vetted it as well. So it can go on that prime time. Some of the partners we worked with aren't to that level yet, but obviously we manage, I think we're at about 80, 86, 87 hotels now. And I'm personally vetted into, looking for that new technology every conference I go to. And if it's something that, like, as Michael says, I want the tech stuff. So if it wows me, I'm going to bring it back and I'm going to investigate it for the next 2 weeks and see how I can implement it. Nick, even if it's not my wheelhouse, if it's F&B wheelhouse or, a business development wheelhouse, I'm going to translate it down.
Awesome. And Michelle, I know we didn't even mention Procell or Duracell during this entire conversation. So why don't you tell us a little about the your product and take us home today?
Well, yeah, and what my hope is that in a couple of years, when you ask that question, everyone will immediately come back with Procell InSite and the proactive device management system. But honestly, we really believe that technology it's only as effective as the infrastructure that supports it, and we believe that Procell InSite gives the foundation for the hospitality industry. It's a comprehensive data-driven approach to monitoring batteries and really managing multiple devices. And it's really all about improving operational efficiency, improving guest satisfaction, and helping hotel partners meet their sustainability goals. So it's really exciting to see how technology is transforming the hospitality sector, and we are really, really proud to be part of this evolution.
That's fantastic. Now, some technologies out there do a little, some do an awful lot for you immediately, like the InSite by Procell product that's out there. But remember, when you're out there thinking about these things, it's not a global issue. Boil it down to one thing at a time. You don't have to save a ton of resources and money on every single implement. It's about lowering your expenses, chipping it away, making things more manageable. And that's, I think, really what we talked about today. All of those solutions and the way to think through those solutions in order to help you create a richer bottom line that engages your customers as well as making your staff lives easier. Now, we had so much great stuff in this, so you're going to want to read the full article in the October issue of Hotel Business Magazine, as well as rewatch this segment on hotelbusiness.com, which will be great. And of course, it'll be available on demand whenever you need it. And soon enough, I'll be running it as a podcast on the No Vacancy podcast feed after you guys have had a chance to take a look at all of this out there. So I want to thank you all for being here. Had a great time with all of you guests. Barry, Michael, Chris, Michelle, you're all amazing. Thank you so much for taking your time out of the day to do this with me. I know I learned a lot, and you guys out there, I hope you did too. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.